All right, so today is kind of a short one, so here goes. I'm glad you've arrived. Now let's build daily interaction number 35. Hey, what's up everyone? John with WebDev for you, and welcome to the Daily Interaction series, where every weekday we build a new interaction or animation in Webflow. I'm really excited to go over today's daily interaction. We're going to build a full screen menu with a text animation when we open the menu. So here I have the demo, and when I click on the menu trigger, we see the menu comes in. It comes in from the bottom to the top, and the menu items also come in from the bottom to the top. So yeah, I just like kind of the animation of it. It's a really smooth animation, and I think it can make for a really nice menu for your website. Here I'm using kind of a chapter theme of like a book, but you can replace this with any menu items and link out to different pages on your website. All right, and I'll close it here, and on close, all the menu items go down and the menu closes. So again, I open, all the menu items come up in the menu, and I close and everything goes down. Yeah, so I just like the timing. It feels really smooth. So yeah, I'm excited to showcase how to create this in Webflow. All right, yeah, so this is what we will be building today. To view more daily interactions and premium content, visit webdevforyou.com. Also, be sure to subscribe below to receive a notification every time there is a new daily interaction. Okay, so here I have a blank Webflow project. So first, we're gonna build out the menu trigger, and the menu items, and then we'll add the interaction. So here, the first thing I'll do, we're going to be using the daily interaction class naming convention. So it's the daily interaction number. So today is 35, and then the element. So every element on the site will have a d-35 in front of it. And this is for consistency purposes, and so that we know we're working with daily interaction number 35. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I'll add a section. So I'll add an element, I'll add a section, and I'll give it the class name d-35 section. And then for the height, I'll set it to 100 VH, viewport height. So it spans the full height of the viewport, and it will be the full width as well. And then for this, I'm going to give it a background because the background of the menu is going to be white. So I want to set the background of the section to something darker so we have a bit of contrast. So here for the color, I'm going to say something close to black. So I'll do hashtag 111 for kind of like a really dark color here. Okay. And then for the display setting for the section, I'm going to say flex. I'm going to say horizontal, justify start. So it starts on the left, and align center. So the reason I'm doing this is because we're going to have the menu trigger to the left and the bottom, or the left and the center of the section. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add the menu trigger inside of the section because we need a trigger to open the menu. Okay, so here I'll add an element, I'll add a div block, and notice it's on the left and in the center, and that's because we assign that flex setting to the section. And I'll give it the class name d-35 menu trigger. Okay, and for this I'll give it a width and height of 50 pixels by 50 pixels. You can use anything you'd like for the menu trigger, but just to save a bit of time, I'm just going to make it a circle. But at webdevforyou.com, I do have other menu triggers that you could use as well for this interaction. So yeah, 50 pixels by 50 pixels. The background, I'll make it this kind of light pink color so we can clearly see it within the black background. And I'll set the border radius to 50% to make it a perfect circle. So half the size of the square makes it a perfect circle. Okay, and then I'll add some margin from the left, let's say like 40 pixels, so it's not flush to the left side of the browser. And there we go. So we have the menu trigger. This is what we're going to use to open the menu. So when we create the interaction, we're going to use this menu trigger. So when we click on it, it opens the menu, and when we click again, it'll close the menu. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add the menu wrapper, or the menu. So to do this, I'm going to click on the navigator, and I'm going to select the body. We're going to add the menu to the body. So I'll select the body here, and I'll add an element. I'll add a div block, and I'll give it the class name d-35 menu wrapper. Okay, and for this, I'm going to set it to a position of fixed and fixed and full. So it fills the entire browser. So no matter where the user is on the site, the menu will open. So it'll always be fixed within the browser. Okay, and for this, I'm going to give it a background color of white. So I'll set it to white, and there we have the menu wrapper. So you might notice that the menu trigger is no longer visible, and we actually need it to be visible because when you open and close the menu, when you open the menu, you still need to see the menu trigger to close it. So we want to bring that menu trigger to the front. So to do that, we'll go to the navigator, we'll go into the section, select the menu trigger, and go back into styles. And for the position, I'll set it to relative. Okay, and by setting it to relative, we can now play with the z index value, which allows us to bring elements, which allows us to change the layer property of the element, so we can bring it further in front of other elements. So I set it to relative, and right down here we have z index. So here I'll set it to something greater than 0. So I'll do something really high like 99. And perfect. Now we see the menu trigger. It's placed in front of all the other elements. All right, looks good. So let's continue building out the menu. So for the menu wrapper, I'll select it here in the navigator, and I'll give it a display setting of flex, justify center, and align center, because we're going to have the menu items in the center. The next thing I'll do is add the menu item wrapper. So here I'll add an element, I'll add a div block, and notice it's in the center, and I'll give it the class name d-35 menu item wrapper. So here what I want to do is go to element settings, and for the tag I'm going to change it to a nav. So this defines a set of navigation links such as those in your main site nav. So I want, because we are going to have link blocks inside of this menu item wrapper, I want it to be kind of known as the nav for the site, so that search engines and the structure of the site knows that this is the menu for the website. So we want to place it, have the div tags be a nav tag. Okay, and then in the styles, I'm going to give it a display setting of flex. I'm going to say vertical, and I'm going to say justify space around, so the menu items have equal spacing between them. And I'm going to say align stretch. Yeah, align stretch is okay here. Okay, so that's all we need to do for the menu item wrapper. Set it to a nav and add a vertical flexbox layout. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is add the link blocks. So I'll add an element. I'll add a link block for the menu item. And we're adding a link block so we can link out to a URL, page section, email, telephone number, or a file. The text for the menu items will go inside of this link block. So here I'll give it the class name d-35 menu item, and for this I'll give it a display setting of flex, set it to vertical, and here I'll say justify center and align center. So the reason we're adding this to the link block is because we're going to have two texts. We're going to have a small text and a large text. So if we go to the demo right in here and I open the menu, we see we have the smaller text and then the larger text here. So we want those to be stacked on top of each other, so that's why we set it to vertical. Okay, display setting of vertical, justify center, and align center. All right, so now let's add the small text first to the link block. So here with the link block selected, I'll add an element and I'll add a text block. So we notice it has kind of this blue color and an underline, and that's because the text is inside of a link block, so Webflow is giving it the hyperlink styling. So to remove that, we'll go into the navigator, and I'll select the text block. So here we have the structure of the site. So we have the menu item wrapper, the menu item, which is the link block, and then inside of the link block is the text block. So to remove the underline, I'll select the link block or the menu item. I'll go into styles, and for the underline under typography, I'll say none. Okay, so that removes the underline, and then I'll select the text block, and I'll give it the class name D-35 menu item text small. Okay, and I'll go to typography. For this, I want to use the font called Laura. We don't have it here, so we need to install it. So to install a font from Google Fonts in Webflow, you just go to the left here where the W is, click, select it, select project settings, and then I'll go to fonts, and here I can select a Google font. So I'll just select from the drop down, and I'll scroll to Laura. So right here, there we go, Laura, and I just need the regular, but I'll install the 700 font weight as well, just in case. And I'll add font, and there we go. So now we can use Laura in this project. So I'll select the text. I'll go ahead and double click and rename this to chapter 1, and let's go ahead and change the type. I'll say Laura. We have it here. For the color, I'll say black, and give it kind of an opacity of 80%, so it's a bit lighter. And the font size of 14 pixels is okay, and the line height of 20 is okay. All right, so now I want to add the larger text, so I'll go into the navigator. I'll select the menu item, so we can add it into the menu item. I'll add an element, add a text block, right up here, and I'll style this as well. I'll give it the class name D-35 menu item text large. Okay, and I'll rename this to the beginning, and we'll give it the font type Laura, and for this we'll set it to black for the color, and the size for the text I'll set it to 34, and the line height I'll set it to 50. Okay, and I'll give it some letter spacing, so I'll say 2 pixels for the letter spacing. So now when I preview, we have the text there. So yeah, there's our menu item. Both of these texts are in a link block, and the link block has the class D-35 menu item. So now I want to copy this 5 times. So I'll go into the navigator, and I'll select the menu item. I'll hit Command-C to copy. I'll select the menu item wrapper, and then I'll paste 4 more times, so we have 5 menu items, and then I'll double click inside of each one. So we have the beginning not with 3 ends, the beginning, the journey, and antagonist, resolution, and end. Okay, and then we have chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. Okay, so again, you can replace this with the pages on your site. I'm just using like a book theme just to change it up a bit and kind of, for demonstration purposes. All right, so the next thing I want to do, let me collapse everything. I'll select the menu item so we can add a bit of margin between these menu items. So I'll select the menu item, and here for the top margin, I'll add a top margin of about 30 pixels. Okay, so looks good. This is how our menu will look once we've added all the interactions. So yeah, I like how that looks. I'll also add a hover animation. So I'll select the menu item text large, then I'll go to states, I'll select the hover state, and I'll go down to typography, and for the color, I'll change it to blue on hover. So when we hover over the large text, it turns blue, and I'll add a transition. So for the states, I'll go back to none because we want to add the transition to the none state, and I'll go down to transitions and transforms. I'll add a transition, and for the property, I'll change it to let's see, font color, because we're going to change the font color. And I'll give it a duration of 500 milliseconds. And then easing of ease is okay. You can choose different easings here, but I like easing. It's nice and smooth. And I'll preview. And when I hover, we have the text turn blue on hover. Okay, so we have everything we need to create the interaction. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So to create the interaction, I want to select the menu trigger, which is in the section. So here in the section, I'll select the menu trigger, which is right here, because we want the interaction to occur when we click on it. So I have it selected. Then I'll go into interactions. Here where it says element trigger, I'll click the plus, and I'll select mouse click or tap. So this is going to occur when we click or tap on it. So I'll select it here. And on first click, we're going to start an animation, and we're going to add a new timed animation. So I'll click the plus, and I'll name this D-35 first click. Okay, so if we go to the demo, and let's just preview it really quick. So I click, the menu comes in. It doesn't start all the way at the bottom. It starts at about 30%. So we want the menu to, we want to set the initial states for the menu. So we want it to start lower and not be visible. And then the menu items, we also want them to start lower and not be visible so that we can have that moving up animation. So the first thing we need to do for all of the elements is add initial states to them. So here for the menu wrapper, so I'll go into the navigator, select the menu wrapper, go back into the interaction, and I'll add a new timed action. So I'll click the plus, select move, and let me just add a bit more real estate here to the screen. Yeah, so we'll say move, and on the Y, we're going to move it down vertically 30%. So yeah, we want to move it on the Y axis. So I'm going to move it down 30% so it starts lower. And I also want to set the opacity so we can have it fade in as it moves up. So I'll add an animation. I'll say opacity, and I'll set it to 0% so we don't see it. And also set it as the initial state. For both the menu wrapper, right next to timing, make sure you select set as initial state, and for the opacity, set as initial state. So when we preview, let's see if I get it here. Yeah, if we preview, we don't see anything. For now, I'm going to set it to 100% for the opacity so we can work with the other elements as well and see kind of how they're moving. But once I'm done setting all the initial states, I'm going to set this opacity back to 0. All right, so let's move all the menu items down as well. So in the navigator, I'll open up the menu wrapper, then the menu item wrapper, and select the first menu item. Then I'll say move. We're going to move these down 60% on the Y. 60%, and set it as the initial state. And also the opacity, we're going to set it to 0% so it moves and fades in as well as it's coming in, and set as initial state. Okay, so I'll do this a few more times. Select the second menu item and say move down 60% and set it as the initial state, and set the opacity to 0 and set as the initial state. So what I can do here now, I can just right click, duplicate the movement, right click, change target, and select the third menu item. Then the opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the third menu item, and I'll just click, hold, and drag so that they become initial states as well. I'll just drag them on top of these ones and they become initial states. So again, I can right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the fourth menu item, then the opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the fourth, and just move it up. And right click, duplicate the movement, right click, change target, select the fifth menu item, then the opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, and select the fifth menu item. All right, so all of them initially, all the menu items start 60% down and with an opacity of 0. The reason we're doing it individually is because we're going to have a staggered motion to each of them. So we need to have them come in individually so we can add a delay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and set the opacity for the menu wrapper back to 0% so we don't see it. And the last thing we need to do is hide the menu completely. So just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So if we don't hide the menu, we wouldn't be able to interact with elements behind it because it is still a div block and it's in front of other elements, so it's actually blocking other elements. So the last thing we need to do is hide the menu completely so it doesn't interfere with the website behind it. And then the first thing we'll do is show the menu and then apply all the other interactions. So here I'll add a new timed action, or yeah, I'll select the menu wrapper and add a new timed action, and I'll say hide show under miscellaneous. And for the display, I'll say display none. So it's almost as if it's not there, okay? And I'll click, hold, and drag and start it with the other ones. So all of these are timed actions that are set as the initial state. So if I preview, it's almost as if there's no menu on the site. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is, the first thing we're gonna bring back all of those elements that we hid and set an opacity to 0. So the first thing we need to do is make sure that that menu comes back in. So we'll add a timed action, and I'll say hide show, and I'll set the display to flex because that's the property we assigned to it when we were first building it. Okay. Then I want the menu wrapper. For this, we don't need any timing. It'll just show. And then we want to bring the menu wrapper. We want to have it move back to 0% and an opacity of 100%. So because it's here in the timed action, I can select it. Then I'll say move, and we'll move it on the Y back to 0%. And for this, for the easing, I'm going to say ease in out and a duration of 0.5. You can work with the easing and set any easing you'd like, but after playing around with this menu quite a bit, I kind of found particular easings that I liked. So for the menu wrapper, when it comes back in, we'll set the easing to ease in and out and a value of 0%. And excuse me, and the opacity, we want to select opacity, another timed action, and we'll set it to 100%, and we'll set it to ease in out and start it with the movement. So I'll click, hold, and drag so they start together. So now I'll preview, and when I click the menu trigger, that menu comes in from 30% down and back to up to 0%, and it fades in. Okay, so let's do that one more time. I click, it comes in, looks good. So the next thing I want to do is bring in all the menu items as well. So here in the timed action, I'll select the first menu item. So I know it's in sequence, so we have 1 through 5. So I'll select it here, or I can select it in the navigator menu item. And here I'll say move, and I'll move it back to 0%. And for the menu items, the movement has an easing of ease out expo. Yeah, I have it here, ease out expo, and a duration of 2 seconds. So it's going to move in pretty slow. And then we're going to set an opacity. We're going to have it fade in as well. And this is going to have, the opacity is set to 100%. And it's going to have a duration of 1 second. And the easing for the opacity is ease. Okay, and I'll click, hold, and drag to start it with the movement of the menu item. So if I preview and I click, that menu item comes in nice and slow and looks good. So I just want to apply this to all the menu items. So again, like we did for the initial states, I'm going to right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the second menu item. And for the opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, and select the second menu item, and just make sure they start with the other ones. Then right click, duplicate for the movement, right click, change target, select the third menu item, opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the third, and we'll start them up here, and right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the fourth for the movement, opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, and select the fourth, and click, hold, and drag, starting with the other ones. Movement, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, select the fifth one, and then the opacity, right click, duplicate, right click, change target, and select the fifth one. Okay, so yeah, and I'll start them with the rest. So now when I preview and I click on the menu trigger, they all come in together. So I want a staggered motion to these. So what I want to do is add a delay to each one. So I'm going to start the delay from the bottom and work my way up, because if I start at the top and start adding a delay, Webflow will rearrange all the timed actions, and because they all have the same class name, it could get a bit confusing. So by starting at the bottom, all the menu items will stay in a sequence. So here I'll start at the bottom. They're each going to have a delay of 0.1. So the first one is not going to have any delay, so it's going to be 0, then 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. So the fifth one at the bottom here, I'll start here. It's going to have a delay of 0.4, and the opacity as well, delay of 0.4. Then I'll move up to the third. It's going to have a delay of 0.3 and a delay of 0.3 for the opacity. Then the second one, let's see, 0.3, 0.3. Then the third menu item is going to have a delay of 0.2, and the opacity as well is going to be 0.2. And then the second menu item is going to have a delay of 0.1, and the opacity as well is going to be 0.1. All right, and the first menu item is not going to have any delay. So now when I preview and I click, it has a nice staggered motion. Okay, in the preview it goes a bit slow, but in the browser it looks really nice. Okay, so yeah, that's all we have to do for the first click. So now for the second click, yes, we have the first click. So for the second click, I want to start at the bottom, and then have all the menu items go down from the bottom, and then have the menu go down as well. So here what I'll do is I'll click the first, close the first click, and on the second click we're going to start an animation. I'm going to duplicate the first click, so I'll select these three dots and I'll say duplicate. Then I'll select D-35 first click 2, and I'll rename it here to D-35 second click. So this is what's going to occur when the user clicks again. We want to close the menu. So for the second click, we don't need any initial states because we already set that for the first click. So I'm going to delete all of the initial states. So I'll just select delete for all of the initial states, and there we go. So I want to create kind of the reverse animation. So the first things that are going to move out are the menu items, then the menu wrapper, and then we're going to hide the menu. So the menu wrapper, I'm going to just click, hold, and drag and place it after the menu items. And then the hide show for the menu, the entire menu, is going to go all the way at the end. Okay, so for the menu items, we want to add the delay in reverse, and I also have a different different easing for the second click. So the easing for all of them is actually ease. So for the movement, just change it to ease rather than out expo, and I just like having that effect for the closing of the menu. So on all the movements, for the menu item, I'm just changing it to ease, and the menu wrapper can stay ease and out. Okay, so we want to reverse the delay. So because I want the first menu item to move out first. So here in the navigator, I'll select menu item 5, and it highlights it here, so it's in blue. And we want to bring, or actually first, for the menu items, let's change all the values back to 60% and a 0% opacity. So here for the movement, I'll just say 60%. So it moves back down, opacity 0. For the movement, I'll say 60% and opacity 0. So these are the initial values for before they move in. So it goes back to, so it goes back down. And opacity 0%. Yeah, it disappears and moves down. So 60%, on the Y, and opacity of 0%, and the movement, 60%, and the Y, the opacity 0%. And then for the menu wrapper, it's going to move down 30%, and the opacity of 0%. Okay, and we'll apply that in a second so we can see the menu items. All right. Let's move it back to 0%. So let's work with the menu items first. We do want to change the delay order. So for menu item 5, here, we have it here, so I selected it. This is going to have a delay of 0 and 0 for the opacity. Then I'll select menu item 4, and so we have it here. This is going to have a delay of 0.1, and the opacity is 0.1 as well. And menu item 3, select it here. When you select it in the navigator, it highlights it in the timed action, so that can be a kind of a good reference or an easy way to know which menu item you're working with, because they all have the same class name. So for the third menu item, that can stay at a delay of 0.2 because it's the middle one. Then the second menu item is going to have a delay of 0.3. So the movement and the opacity 0.3, and the first menu item is going to have a delay of 0.4, and the opacity 0.4. Okay, so now they'll go in reverse. So now when I preview, I click, they all come in, and when I click again, they all move out. Perfect. And for the menu wrapper, let's see, select the menu wrapper, and this is going to move down 30% and an opacity of 0%. And then at the end, for the hide show, we're going to say display none again, so we don't see the menu and it doesn't interfere with the user interacting with the website. So I'll preview, click on the menu trigger, comes in, there we have the menu, click again, goes out, and perfect. So that's a bit slow. After the menu items go down, it's a bit slow. So what we can do is start the menu wrapper movement with the menu items, and then add a delay to the menu wrapper. So I'll add a delay. The overall time is about like 2 seconds for the menu item because it's moving pretty slow for the movement. So I don't want it to start after the last menu item finishes. I want it to start kind of together, together with that last menu item. So here for the menu wrapper, we'll add a delay of something like 1.2. And the opacity, we'll set it to 1.2. You can play with this, but basically what's going to happen is it's not going to wait till the last menu item finishes fading out. The last menu item is going to start fading out, and then as it's fading out, the menu will move down and close. So I'll preview, click, fades in, click again, and perfect. So it's more of a like a and scene type of thing. So everything moves down. It's not waiting till it all goes down and then moves the menu. The menu comes a bit quicker, or closes a bit quicker. All right, so it comes in, looks good, close again, and perfect. Nice, it looks like curtains coming down, which I really like. And that's it. You could start the hide show quicker too, but I'd rather wait till this finishes, the menu wrapper finishes its animation, and then we'll say hide the menu completely so it doesn't interfere with the website. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this interaction. We click, the menu items come in, click again, and they go out. So for some reason it plays a bit slower here in the preview, but if I publish it, I'll go ahead and publish to selected domains, and I'll preview, and I'll click, and it looks really smooth. All right. So I really like this menu. I like the movement and how it feels, and it can make for a really nice menu for your website. All right, perfect. So if you have any questions about anything I went over, We did work a lot with the menu items, so there was a lot of timed actions in there. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything I went over, definitely feel free to let me know in the comment section for the video or in the forum section in the members section. All right, and you can replace this menu trigger with another menu trigger from WebDev4you.com. All right, yeah, so I'll go back to the demo, and let me actually close these here. Yeah, I'll go back to the demo, and looks good. So you can have a nice website, add some nice content, and then have users kind of experience a smooth animation there with the menu. All right, perfect. Okay, so that is it for daily interaction number 35. To view more daily interactions and premium content, visit webdev4you.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next daily interaction.